How to buy Bitcoin in 7 steps, online money making. With the ongoing surge in interest and media coverage, the conversation gets louder and louder, and so much harder to ignore. The price of Bitcoin has risen quickly over recent years. Bitcoin could have huge implications for everyone's future. I felt it was time to try buying Bitcoin again. Not to make money, but to understand what the hell all the fuss was about. The itch led me down a rabbit hole of research. Fueled by fascination and excitement, I finally got it. It also became obvious that today it's far easier to buy Bitcoin than it was 4 years ago. In this guide, I take you through the exact steps I followed to buy Bitcoin. The process itself took about 15 minutes. But before we get to the tutorial steps of how to buy Bitcoin, it's really important to know what we're getting into. Increasingly, I hear from students making mistakes due to rushing into Bitcoin investing because of all the hype. There's so much fragmented or misleading information out there. My aim here is to strip the buying process to total basics without putting you off for another 4 years, hopefully. To many people, Bitcoin represents the future of paying for something. As a new digital global cryptocurrency. Rather than using a £1 coin or $1 bill. Something could be 1 Bitcoin, 1 BTC. But Bitcoin is much more than a currency. And this is why people often get confused. It's also the entire network, known as a blockchain, that securely oversees the entire process of someone sending money to someone else. Say you spend £20 at a restaurant on a Visa debit card. That transaction must be processed through a card machine, Visa, your bank, and the merchant bank. At each step, communication and verification takes place. Bitcoin's promise is to remove all of this friction involved in the verification, whilst also making payments much more secure. You could use your mobile phone to send £20 worth of Bitcoin to the restaurant directly. By cutting out the middlemen, transactions become much cheaper too, especially when it comes to international payments. Bitcoin also takes on the role of government central banks, e.g., the Bank of England. Governments traditionally have control over the supply of currency, which is open to manipulation and corruption. The Bitcoin blockchain is completely open. It isn't owned or controlled by anyone. It's run by a network of many computers around the world. Of course, the young cryptocurrency is not without its critics. Mainstream media, traditional banks, and financial commentators all warn against a bubble set to burst, and the opportunity for the Bitcoin network to be used by criminals. As a total novice, I spent days researching the ins and outs of Bitcoin, its benefits and risks. Here's my distilled list of the key points. Ultimately, Bitcoin promises to democratize money, whilst removing almost all of the friction and cost in making a secure payment. Under the bonnet, Bitcoin is an incredibly complex technology, which makes it so secure. Most people don't really know how card machines or even the internet works, but still use them every day. We'll dig deeper into the background and implications of Bitcoin later if you're keen to learn more. Slightly smiling face. Firstly, you don't need to buy a full Bitcoin. That would be pretty expensive now. A Bitcoin can be divided all the way down to 100 millionths. You can buy BTC for as little as £5 if you wish. Speculators, the value has risen massively. But it's still very volatile, making Bitcoin a risky investment. The curious, Bitcoin's an exciting new technology. And many want to just understand the future of money and be part of the conversation. Everyone has their own motivations when it comes to buying and selling Bitcoin. But the purpose of this guide is for the third type. I bought a small amount of Bitcoin myself to understand and appreciate this new technology and the opportunities it brings. Once you actually give it a go by buying and sending some Bitcoin, it becomes a whole lot simpler to understand. I believe everyone would benefit by buying a tiny bit of Bitcoin just to educate themselves on the digital currency, which could quickly become part of our future. I do think Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency that has the potential to do something like change the world. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal. I'm going to walk you through the exact steps I took to buy Bitcoin. I bought some for the sole purpose of going through the motions. There are plenty of other, potentially questionable, methods and websites you could use, which could be slightly cheaper, but this was all about minimizing risk and complication for myself as a total newbie. Bitcoin address, a string of numbers unique to you, that allows you to receive Bitcoin, acts like a bank account number. Also known as a public key. After some lengthy research, I decided on using Coinbase as a one-stop shop. They set me up with an address, a BTC digital wallet, and the conversion of pounds to Bitcoin itself. I also like their intuitive website and mobile app, which allows me to send and receive Bitcoin on the move. The whole Bitcoin buying process outlined below took me less than 15 minutes. With this link you're able to receive a bonus amount of free Bitcoin if you buy or sell over $100 per 76 pounds, you don't have to head to your inbox and click the verification link. It may take a few minutes to arrive, check junk folder if longer. This is known as two-factor authentication and means no one can access your account without knowing your password and holding your phone. Coinbase will immediately send you an SMS with a code. Enter this in the box, and your account's created and secured. Slightly smiling face. To follow financial regulations, Coinbase need to verify your identity. And this is the next page you'll see. Enter your personal details and on the next step select an ID type for which you'll need to upload a photo. The live verification check only takes a minute or so. Once complete, you will be taken to your Coinbase dashboard. For the purposes of this tutorial, I suggest using a debit or credit card. This allows you to buy Bitcoin instantly for a small fee. Bank transfer is an option but can take several days to set up. Enter in the amount of money, or Bitcoin, you wish to buy. I bought 100 pounds, but it could be as little as 5 pounds. 76 pounds is needed for the 7 pounds sign-up bonus. The conversion will be automatically shown. The box on the right shows the full transaction, including the fees. In my example, I purchased 100 pounds with total Coinbase fees of £3.41. The remaining 96 pounds and 59 pence bought me 0.016036666 Bitcoin. Now that you know how to buy Bitcoin, you may like to try using it. Sending and receiving Bitcoin is all managed from your Coinbase Bitcoin wallet. Click on the Bitcoin account. To receive Bitcoin from someone else, they just need your unique Bitcoin address. You can find yours by clicking the Receive button. It's also in a QR format that's very convenient on mobiles. This of course opens up the ability to spend and transfer Bitcoin locally using QR codes. For example, in shops or between friends at dinner. Bitcoin transfers are also stored in the publicly available blockchain, but they're completely anonymous because there's no way to associate the addresses with people. Just for kicks, click here to see an example transaction I sent to a friend's wallet. Again, don't worry about understanding it, but we'll come back to blockchain technology later in this guide if you're interested. From local London pubs to global retailers, businesses of all sizes are starting to accept Bitcoin as payment. You can even pay tuition fees at Cumbria University with Bitcoin, and there have been rumors that Amazon will soon be joining the party. Although it is not essential to understand exactly how Bitcoin works to use it. Knowledge is power, and I personally find it fascinating. Blockchain technology is a super secure way of publicly verifying the transfer of information between two parties. When a transfer takes place, a block is added to the chain chronologically. Each block contains sets of data relating to the transaction, and also relates to the previous block with a cryptographically generated signature. It's this signature that locks, or chains, all the blocks together, so that a block can never be modified once it's created. Seen as a kind of public ledger, a blockchain is stored in the cloud across thousands of computers around the world. The mix of the chain being decentralized and blocks bound together makes blockchain technology practically unhackable. Bitcoin was the first and most popular implementation of blockchain. When you send some Bitcoin to another person, the transaction will be verified by lots of computers in the Bitcoin blockchain and create a new block. You can see a real example of a block here. This is a Bitcoin transaction I made. Note the confirmations icon. 1,814 separate computers have already verified this transaction. But in fact, any form of transfer that requires validation can utilize the technology. Anything from licensing music, sharing medical records to buying a house. Ethereum is another kind of cryptocurrency that also goes beyond money to handle smart contracts. This means a legal document such as the transfer of title deeds can be quickly validated for a property sale. For example, whilst it's still early days, some experts predict that blockchain technology will lead us into a trust revolution. Following on from the industrial and informational revolutions, new Bitcoin is created as a result of mining, which is conveniently also the way that every Bitcoin transaction is processed and verified. For every transaction, mining computers must solve very complex mathematical problems and generate a 64-digit solution. Once solved, one block is added to the Bitcoin chain and the miner earns a certain amount of new Bitcoin as a reward. The Bitcoin blockchain is programmed to only ever release 21 million Bitcoins. Once they've all been mined, no more will ever be created. This is estimated to happen by July 2020. At time of writing there are over 16.7 million in existence, live count here. It's important to remember it's still very early days. All new technology comes with obstacles and trade-offs. Just as we've seen with the internet and disruptors like Uber. In 2010 someone bought just 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. Today those pizzas would be over 72 million pounds. The phenomenal growth follows Bitcoin becoming increasingly widespread, really hitting a tipping point in 2017 as its value surged by more than 880% in 12 months. Bitcoin had the advantage of being the first cryptocurrency, but there isn't one specific reason why Bitcoin itself has become so popular. Various political events have added to the mix since 2009. Along with technological advances and media attention. For example, HMRC, the European Court and Japan have recently recognized Bitcoin as a real currency. Whilst Chinese investors are increasingly keen to move their money away from the control of Chinese government. The financial crisis of 2008 undoubtedly also gave Bitcoin a big step up. Big banks revealed their vulnerabilities and many people lost trust in institutions. Is something like Bitcoin not just the natural next stage of progression? Bitcoin offers a democratic, digital, fast, secure global currency. Money has already gone from grain to metals to paper to electronic, online banking, credit cards, PayPal, etc. Perhaps we're on the cusp of going completely digital, and Bitcoin is taking the lead. With all the advantages that Bitcoin and blockchain carries, and that only 0.1% of the global population are participating so far, the momentum is likely to continue. The name used by the founder is Satoshi Nakamoto, but this is an alias for an individual or group rather than an actual person. The decision to remain anonymous supports the idea of Bitcoin not being owned by anyone. Satoshi Nakamoto coded the Bitcoin blockchain network, but then released it to the world, open source, to ensure no one person has control over Bitcoin. In the tutorial and example above of how to buy Bitcoin, I choose to use Coinbase due to its simplicity and relative security. There are quite a few other Bitcoin exchanges which have lower fees but can be slightly more complex to use for newbies. If you are serious about buying Bitcoin beyond the realm of just understanding how it works, you can check out Coinbase Pro. Use your Coinbase account to log in first. Never sell directly to someone you don't know outside of an exchange. Because if you send the BTC first, they could easily disappear without paying you. Websites like Coinbase give you an online Bitcoin wallet, which is easy to use and fine to get you started. However, they still act as a mediator. So if you're serious about buying and using Bitcoin, you will want to get your own BTC wallet that you control and sits on an offline USB stick. There are options to invest in Bitcoin through exchange-traded portfolios. These simply track the price of Bitcoin so you don't need to worry about securing your wallet. I personally own Bitcoin and also invest a small amount via the online trading platform eToro. We have a great guide on eToro here and reported about a student who's had success with cryptocurrencies using the platform. Disclaimer: cryptocurrencies can fluctuate widely in prices and are not appropriate for all investors. Trading cryptocurrencies is not supervised by any EU regulatory framework. This guide on buying Bitcoin is not investment advice. You should consider whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Bitcoin is not a scam. It is a legitimate new financial technology already being used by millions of people around the world. That's not to say there aren't scams associated with Bitcoin. Many people let greed get the better of their judgment. Don't do their research and see buying Bitcoin as a get-rich-quick scheme. Scammers may advertise fake Bitcoin wallets or exchanges on social media to cash in on the hype and confusion. Always do your research, as I have for this tutorial, and never part with money or personal details unless you are 100% confident. They also still act like a bank by mediating payments, with all the transactions centralized and controlled by one company. Lastly, PayPal transactions aren't encrypted to the same level as Bitcoin, so overall PayPal is more vulnerable to being targeted by hackers. If you have used this tutorial on how to buy Bitcoin and found it helpful, please share it with your friend's slightly smiling face. Disclaimer: all content on this website is based on individual experience and journalistic research. It does not constitute financial advice. Save the Student and its authors are not liable for how tips are used, nor for content and services on external websites. Common sense should never be neglected. We sometimes use affiliated links which may result in a payment following a visitor taking action, such as a purchase or registration, on an external website. This helps keep Save the Student free. The user experience shouldn't be any different, and our editorial decision making is not affected by such links. Like most sites, we use cookies to optimize your experience and serve personalized content. By using our website, you agree to our use of cookies. More info. Text source: savethestudent.org.